Hello world, it's Austin. Let's talk about being transgender and Christian. So I've been getting a lot of comments on the videos lately that have to do with my thoughts on sexuality and sexual orientation. People have been asking about what my thoughts are on same-gender relationships, and I think some of them are maybe confused a little bit about the differences between gender identity and sexuality. So I thought this week would be a good time to talk about the differences between sexuality and gender identity, and the place where those two things meet. Let's run through a couple of definitions first. Your sexuality is who you are romantically or sexually attracted to. It's all about your feelings towards other people. There's a huge range in human sexuality, and so we have lots of different labels to help us understand people whose sexual orientation is different than ours. You might identify as gay, which for most people means a man attracted to another man, although some people use gay as more of an umbrella term to just mean anybody who's attracted to people of the same gender. You might identify as a lesbian, which usually means that you are a woman attracted to women, or you might be somebody who's attracted to multiple different genders, in which case you might call yourself bisexual or pansexual. Or you might not be sexually interested in anybody, in which case you might be asexual, and it's important to note that asexual people oftentimes have romantic attractions even if they don't have sexual attractions. And then of course you might be heterosexual or straight, which means that you would be a man attracted to a woman or a woman attracted to a man. Now completely separately, we have the concept of gender identity. Gender identity is about your sense of self. Most people on Earth are born with bodies that we immediately identify as male or female, and the majority of those people grow up feeling like those identifiers, male or female, fit them. If the doctor took one look at you when you were born and said, "It's a boy," and you grew up and spent your whole life feeling like you were a boy or a man, then you're cisgender. Cis is just a Latin prefix that we put on the front of the word that means that your gender identity and your assigned sex match. The prefix cis actually means on the same side. But if you were born and the doctor said, "It's a boy," and at age 5 or age 35 or age 55, you realized that the way that you thought and felt and experienced the world was not male, then you might be transgender. Trans is another Latin prefix that means across or on the other side of, and that signals that there is a difference between your assigned sex and your gender identity. And not all transgender people fit into boxes of male or female. There are agender people and non-binary people who help us realize that maybe we don't have to fit into one of two boxes. Now, are we at least a little bit more clear on the differences between sexuality and gender identity? Because I'm about to mix it up a little bit. Think of gender identity as a flavor of ice cream and your sexuality as a flavor of sprinkles or topping. Because your sexuality and your gender identity are two different things, there are a bunch of different ways to mix and match. There are cisgender men who are attracted to men and identify as gay, and there are also transgender men who are attracted to other men and identify as gay. There are transgender women who are attracted to men and identify as straight. There are transgender people who are attracted to men and women and people of all other genders, and they might identify as bisexual. So many possible combinations. But just because you know somebody's gender identity does not mean you know their sexuality, because they are two separate things. I've had quite a few negative comments on these videos lately with people talking about why being gay is bad. I guess these folks think that because I'm trans, I'm also gay, I guess? Honestly, I doubt these folks have taken a lot of time to speak with LGBT people, because they might know, if they did, that being trans is not just like gay 2.0. Now, as I said before, it is definitely possible for trans folk to identify as lesbian or gay or bisexual or pansexual or asexual or anything like that. And in fact, I myself am bisexual, but that doesn't mean you can assume somebody's sexuality based on their gender identity. And for heaven's sakes, if you're gonna argue theology in YouTube comments, at least make sure that you're arguing against the relevant thing. So for the record, I'm a trans guy, and I'm also bisexual, and I don't think either one of those things is a sin. There are many reasons why I believe this, and if you want to see some more resources on sexuality and Christian faith, definitely check out the resources I'm going to put down in the description below. And obviously I don't think it's a sin to be trans, or I wouldn't be making these videos. I think the bigger question here is, how are we, as Christians, called to respond to people we disagree with, either in real life or on the internet? First of all, of course, we have to remember Jesus' words in Mark 12:31, where he says that we are supposed to love our neighbors as ourselves. And in this global world, and especially on the internet, everybody's your neighbor. Going beyond that, though, Jesus also says in Matthew 5:44 to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. There's a school of thought out there among some Christians that the best way to love somebody is to point out all the places where you think they're going wrong so that they can get their stuff together and change. If you're an LGBTQ Christian, there's a pretty good chance that at some point somebody has come up to you and said that they just really feel like they need to love you by telling you how sinful your identity is. Friends, I'm gonna make a bold claim here. I do not think that's the kind of love Jesus was talking about. Jesus never said that you're supposed to make somebody feel deep, utter, despairing shame about who they are. Instead, Jesus says in John 13:44 that we are supposed to love each other as he loved us. And there are so many stories about Jesus accepting people for who they are, even when the entire rest of their society did not accept them. So if you want to see what real love looks like, Jesus style, you're going to have to pick up the Gospels and do a bit of reading. But I promise, there's some really good stories in there. So love your trolls, everybody. It's harder to do than it is to say, but we gotta try. That's part of what we're called to do, right? One more thing, though, that I have to say about this, and that is that even though we are called to love people that are different than us and love people who we disagree with, we can also take some precautions to safeguard ourselves. As LGBTQ people, we run a higher risk of physical violence, so I'm definitely not saying in this video that you should put yourself out there as a punching bag for everybody who just is mad at the world. It's okay to make sure that you're safe. But to the extent that we are able, we are called to love people that are different than we are called to love our neighbors, we are called to pray for the people that disagree with us, and the people that write mean things in the comments. Thanks for watching the video this week, everybody. I've got a couple of news things for you, just heads up. The first one is that Patreon perks are going out at the end of this week, and you don't even have to pay your first patron fee until the beginning of March. So if you want your free perk this month, sign up at the Patreon. Second, on Monday, the very first Transgender and Christian email newsletter went out. It's going to be a weekly newsletter. It's going to come at you every Monday, and I'm really excited about it. So if you want to jump on board with the newsletter, you can sign up below as well. Thanks, everybody. I hope you're having a great week full of loving comments, and we will see you back here next Wednesday. Peace.